Square triangles.
Well, but
We can be pretty much sure that it doesn't exist.
But by definition, a triangle is a three-sided shape.
Correct. And a square is not three-sided, four-sided. So can there be a square triangle in any way in our cosmos, in reality? There cannot be.
Only if you change the definition.
No. You're not changing definition. You're sticking to what you're asking. But why are we going to change definitions to fit our answer?
But you could.
See, do you now realize we are not going to change our definition to fit our answers just because it's in line with our particular bias and so on. So there cannot be a married bachelor anywhere on planet Earth. Can there be?
Because of the definition of the word.
Yes. So once we know certain concepts, we know whether they can exist or not exist. So when you say this universe, we don't know whether it was always in existence or not, or it had a beginning. You can look at the components of the universe. If there are finite things within the set of this universe, and everything is dependent on everything else, then you know that everything must be contingent. The universe itself as a whole has to be contingent, meaning dependent on something else other than itself. There are many arguments for the existence of a creator, and the contingency argument is one of the most powerful arguments that the philosophers who are atheists or non-theists are struggling with. So you may not have studied philosophy in detail, but the philosophers themselves are struggling with this point that how do we explain everything contingent and not dependent on something independent? That is our position as a theist, as a believer. That this universe, the sum of contingent things is contingent. Sum of dependent things is dependent. That means the universe must depend on something which is independent. There has to be something that brought about this universe. Because the universe which is dependent could not bring itself into existence. For example, you and I, we are dependent. We are dependent on everything that you can even imagine. Food, water, air, to sustain our life. Stop breathing for 10 hours. You can't. Stop eating and drinking for 2 days, 3 days, 1 week. 1 month? You can't. A few days you can't because of the energy reserve that we have in our body. It can sustain us week, maybe sometimes, and so on. But a month? I don't think so. Because you will start decaying. You'll use up all of these proteins will break up eventually. Your fat, your proteins, eventually you will die. So we are dependent on food to sustain our life. So how is it that this particular body that we have, the engineered body, we say it's not engineered by anything. It just came into reality. I mean, look at our own selves. You know how smart as you are, how beautiful as you are, this particular body that we have, individual components. Are you into biology? Are you into biology? Do you teach biology or right? But you studied biology, okay? You have? Think about the inner components of the cell. Are we saying all of these components came together by itself? Are we saying the cells, they started aligning with each other to form a tissue? You know the cells of the skin, it's not the same cells that makes up the tissue of the heart, or the lungs, or the kidneys. But during development, when the cells started, during the fertilization period, it started dividing and making all these different kind of cells, then they started aggregating. They became collecting together to form a tissue. How so? Where is this program coming from? Who programmed it? What programmed it? When you say we don't know, it seems like we do know. We do know, but we are not willing to subscribe to the idea that there is a designer. We are not willing to subscribe to the idea that there is a creator, that there is a deity, that there is a God, because there are consequences or ramifications of that belief.
No,
that may be...
It's not the consequences.
Okay.
It's just that it doesn't feel particularly compelling to me.
Okay, so now let us reason then. How do these cells come together to form a tissue? What designed it?
Well, it's the characteristics of the matter. Right?
No, there's a program. Program means specific information.
That's what you're telling me.
No, DNA is a very super complex piece of information. in our body, those information in terms of what it's going to do, whether it's going to make, your particular height and complexion and so on. This information either is random, mechanical, by chance, without a precise engineering or an engineer behind it, or there is a designer behind it.
Perhaps there's 300 engineers.
Fine. Either it is designed, engineered, or it's not, to put it simplistically. Whether there are many designers, that's still designed. So either our cells and our tissues are designed by a designer,
It could
or it's
also
not.
be beyond our understanding as well.
No, that's like saying, if somebody asks you a question, let me address that
We're
very
just
quickly.
monkeys running around the planet, basically.
By saying we don't know yet is not the correct answer. It's
Maybe
simply,
we'll never know.
it's,
I'm not even saying yet. We may never ever know.
why so? Why are you so confident? Why are you so hyper-skeptical?
I'm not confident. I just don't.
When you say we may never know, that's some kind of confidence to say that we'll never know.
No, I said we may never know.
Yeah, but we do know enough to make our conclusions. We know enough that this design cannot come about by itself, because we don't see anything in our world where programs come by itself. Even think about, like, you have a house that you live in. In your house, you have bedrooms, you have kitchen and so on. Do you see tea or coffee being made and assembled by itself without either yourself or your robots that you have who makes tea and coffee for you, if you have one? Do you see tea and coffee being made? So you have the cupboard there where inside it there are teapots and the tea bags. And you have the fridge, and inside it's milk. You have to open up the door of the fridge to get the milk. You have the tap where you get the water. You have your cooker or whatever you use, will fire up and warm it up. Do you think all of this, do you ever see, not think, these components come together?
Make the tea.
No, let's understand it. Do you ever see, or do you ever hope that a good cup of tea with, how many sugars do you take, will come together and it will be ready for you to drink? Would you ever believe that? Or are you going to be hyper-skeptical and say, we don't know the answers yet, but it's possible?
I'm probably more towards the hyper-skeptical.
Yeah, but I think the lady here should doubt, because if she wants a cup of tea, she can wait for millions and zillions of years. It will never happen if she keeps on waiting. Because these things won't never happen. She is pragmatist realist. You are.
She can make her own tea.
Yeah, if she does it, that's proving the point. To make tea, you need a conscious agent who has the power and ability of a will to go and assemble these things together. So this is just information in terms of the mechanical parts to make something. This universe, our DNA, everything that we are here, to assemble these things in a particular order into a tissue of a heart, as opposed to tissue of the skin. This information requires a conscious, willing agent to put this together. That's my point. Now, if you have a good point to argue against it, I would like to hear it.
Even if you accept there's a conscious agent,
Yeah.
how do you conclude that it's the God that you say it is?
Okay, it's a very good question. But firstly, we should at least...
No, there's no firstly.
No, firstly, at least we should say it's not the sake of argument only that we somehow come to this, some kind of understanding that, okay, maybe there is a conscious agent. Then we want to know what are the properties of this conscious agent. We have to admit at least, okay, it seems reasonable to assert. It seems reasonable to assert that there is a conscious willing agent. Once we...
2 or 3 or 4.
No, at least it's reasonable to assert that. Then the next question comes in, how many of these are there? And what are their properties? How do you then take this and make that into a deity or a god? We can address that question.
I mean, there's lots of things in the world I don't understand, and whether it's a conscious agent or not could be one of those things that I don't understand.
If it's unconscious, the problem starts again. Unconscious teapots and unconscious fridge don't make your tea.
But this is not a cup of tea.
But this already shows in nature,
crazy, right?
But this nature already shows the handiworks of a conscious engineer. It is not blind nature, which has no consciousness, because the same question to be applied again. If you think this is all products of nature, it's not conscious, doesn't have a will, doesn't think. it's not self-aware. How does it assemble things? So you cannot ascribe this to something called nature. It has to be some kind of agent with a will, with self-awareness. How do you then explain assembly of information without conscious willing agent?
I don't know.
But that's not the right answer, though.
Well, look.
I don't know.
It's the best answer I've got.
Okay.
And it's
fair
the
enough.
one that I live
Fair
with.
enough. But I want to just at least explain to you one thing. If I go to an exam and you are a professor of mathematics or a teacher, and he says, what is 5 plus 5 in our conventional mathematics? The answer is 10. Okay, it's not difficult to know that. But if I said I don't know, it doesn't mean that's the correct answer.
No.
I don't know is simply that I'm not aware of the correct answer.
I agree with you.
So I agree with you that when you say you don't know, that the answer is there, but you don't know it. But I am suggesting when we look at, for example, if you have all the circumstantial evidence, a video footage, someone actually stabbing someone and killing, and zoom in and that's the guy. Every circumstantial evidence, many cameras, so you have multiple witnesses. In a court of law, we're not going to say like, that's magic. That's simply a police camera too. No, this is all doctored. Circumstantial evidence points to the crime committed by that individual, the criminal. We will convict that criminal and we'll be happy with that. We'll be content saying we have the circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is out there for our universe in which there seems to be an engineer, a designer, a creator who has assembled all of this information. If you say, all of that I see, but I don't know yet, it's like the judge says, I don't know who killed him. It's there in front of you. You saw that criminal with a knife, the weapon. He's done the act, the killing, and you still say, I don't know. Maybe in the future I will know. You would be not a good judge in anyone's eyes. You will say, but the evidence is in front of you. So if the evidence is in front of us in our cosmos, and we simply say, I don't know, then that needs to be re-examined in our perspective.
But in your explanation there, you have a physical knife, a physical victim, and a physical perpetrator. I don't really see any of that in the universe.
Isn't that all in front of you? The example I've given you about the cells. This is an example exactly, the handiworks of an engineer. The only explanation you can say is either it's by design or it's by chance. Then you have to now give me some reasons to believe that chance can account for this kind of assembly of information. Then I can take this into account seriously.
No, but that's true if I was arguing for anything. But I'm just saying there's a lot of doubt. And I'm acknowledging all the doubt.
But when you have two options, broadly speaking. No, either by chance, design or not by design. I'm doing a binary kind of discussion here. Either by design or not by design. What's the other alternative?
Something we don't understand as human beings with our tiny brains.
When we talk about either something is by design or not by design, what would be the third alternative?
There could be 100 alternatives.
Like?
Or like, well, I don't know because I'm a monkey as well. That's the problem.
You see, let me share with you.
We're just monkeys
okay,
trying to understand our environment.
Tell me whether you agree or disagree. Either you exist or you don't exist. Is there a third alternative?
To existing or not existing?
In existence. Either you're in existence or you're not in existence.
I don't actually think it's binary like that when it comes to existence.
Why not?
Well,
what's the other alternatives other than this too?
Well, so the only philosopher I'm aware of who talks about the
he's into philosophy, right?
Who talks about it in that way is Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am."
But you know why he said that?
But it wasn't if I don't think then I'm not. He was just trying to understand what in the universe he could rely on, and his answer was nothing at all except the fact that I'm thinking a thought.
Yeah, but when he said I think I am,
but there's further than that. The point of the argument that he stopped was I think therefore I am. So he concluded that he had a self because he was having a thought. People who picked up his argument and ran with it said actually no, it goes further than that. The only thing he could prove is he was having that thought at that moment. So perhaps he wasn't Descartes.
What
He
that
was just
moment
one
was in
thought-
existence.
One thought in one moment.
What that moment was he in existence?
Not any existence that we understand. He was in some Cartesian philosophical
Existence is existence.
where there was only a thought, but it's intangible.
Yeah, but existence is existence.
Intangible thought.
Non-existent things can't think. Do you agree or disagree? Non-existent things cannot think.
Well, I mean, that was his point. He was trying to prove existence.
I'm going one step further, and I'm saying
Anything other than one intransient thought.
But what I'm saying is non-existent things cannot think.
Well, that's true.
If you're non-existent, you can't think. The fact that you can think, it proves that you're existent.
Yes.
Proving my point again. So when it comes to existence, we can be binary. Either you exist or you don't exist. Likewise, the creator or the designer, organizer, originator of this universe either is existent or is non-existent. Two binary positions. So we can give our justifications from reason and rationality, intellectual argumentations, why the creator exists, and we would like to hear the opposite, why the creator doesn't exist. Do you have anything to...
One thing Descartes didn't think he did was prove that God exists.
Descartes, perhaps he hadn't, explained that. I haven't studied Descartes, but I'm saying is just because Descartes hasn't given you particular understanding of the universe, it means he considered the universe didn't have a creator. We can get all of the philosophers now and look at their thinking processes, and we can see whether their arguments are solid or not, because every philosopher can come up with certain argumentations, right? We can assess those arguments whether they are something that is sound or not, because an argument has to be sound, and you can disregard it if it's not sound. So the fact that the universe demonstrates, some people say it's an illusion of design, points to a designer. But what we are saying is scientists, the reason they use this language of illusion of a design, like whether it's Richard Dawkins or some other scientist, because they know the ramifications. If it's truly designed, then it's a product of a designer. But if it's an illusion, then it's not really designed, you think it's designed. That's how they get away from somehow accepting a designer. But the fact remains though, everything is contingent and has to be contingent on something independent. So, unfortunately, our scientists are not good philosophers. Those who go and somehow propagate about their science on evolutions, on atheism, and so on. Have you read The God Delusion?
By Dawkins.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. You know how the philosophers, I don't want to use bad languages that they've used. The philosophers do not take his arguments with any weight, because he's not giving any philosophical arguments for his so-called philosophical arguments. As a scientist, he can give you a scientific explanation of things, but science itself has a philosophical foundation. That needs to be sound. Dawkins didn't produce that. That's why he got really criticized by theistic philosophers as well as atheistic philosophers. So the scientists, the reason they don't want to subscribe to a creator or a or a God, Ramifications. Why are we here then? Why did this God create us? Oh, we can't do anything and everything that we so wish. That means there will be constraints in what we want, what we desire. Because religion as a whole is a set of boundaries of what you should do and don't do in most religions. That's what the Creator places, this kind of way of living. And this is what the humans who want to be free and with a liberal mindset, they don't want to subscribe to the idea, because they want to be free in terms of, I want to do whatever I want to do. I want to believe in what I want to believe. I want to, go live my life the way I want to live my life. So this kind of away from the restrictions of a boundary, it is what is the main obstacle for people to believe in a God. This is one of the many reasons. The other reasons